Good morning. This is Gaming Perspectives with
Saul
and Jolene. And today we're talking about modules versus your own creativity of making games, or adventure.
Yeah, buying modules or making your own. I think this is a question that always comes upon a GM sooner or later. Do you want to buy modules or do you want to make your own? And there's all kinds of...
Not your own modules, your own game.
Your own adventure.
Your own adventure, yes.
I'm going to use module and adventure interchangeably.
Okay.
Because that's the way my brain works. Because that's what they used to call them back in the old days, in TSR days, tactical... Man, what's TSR? Strategic review? Anyway, TSR was the people who made D&D, and they put out a lot of product, and a lot of that product was adventures, and they call them modules. And that's why I use the term module. I think that's why most people call them module. But module and adventure is the same. So I think there's two things that are big factors in whether you're going to buy one or make up your own. And usually, for me, the big factors are your players and the GM, right? So as a GM, most likely know what your players want to do or what kind of game they want to play or what they want to experience while they're playing, right? Usually, if you played with them a little while.
Okay.
If you haven't ever played with them, then it's a crapshoot, right? And then players is the same thing, right? What kind of game do they want to play? Do they want dungeon crawl, hex crawl? Do they want an intrigue game? All these things that a game could be about. Now, most people, I'm not being, what is it?
Judgmental?
No, that's of course not, never. No, I'm not saying that people are pigeonhole and only do one type of thing. They're going to dungeon crawl. They're going to do some social interaction. They're going to do some puzzle solving, problem solving, all this other stuff. It's a mixed match.
Even recently you said to our Friday nights group, you said, do you guys want a dungeon crawl? And then we had to have a whole discussion about what a dungeon crawl was and what people thought it was versus what Saul thought it was. So,
right, and that's how I think it's a good sign, right? That I asked that question because I wasn't really thinking that there was a question as to what a dungeon crawl was, and people going, "Well, what exactly do you mean?" Because okay,
that's what I said.
So I just got done running the Lost Mines of Phandelver, the original one. I know there's a second edition or sort of a newer edition that came out that is also the Shattered Obelisk, which basically they use that one and then they came up with the second part of it to get your characters from like 6 to 12.
Okay. Well, you're not telling me about it in case you use it, right?
No, I'm not using that.
Okay.
No, I might use some elements about that, but no. So anyway, don't worry, my people don't hear this. Our people don't hear this. So
I think they're part of our audience, babe.
Maybe it's one or two will listen to this. So where was I going with that?
I said I was.
Dungeon crawl.
Sometimes because you said, do your people want a dungeon crawl or
Right.
something else? And I said, well, first you might want to define what that means to you or the players because you had asked that question.
Right. So I thought the Mines of Phandelver, that adventure, the way the original was written, is kind of like a dungeon crawl to me. Or, yeah. Well, because basically your characters go from here to here and they have an encounter, and there was a lot of dungeons or caves and castles where they went room by room kind of thing. And so to me, I thought that was like dungeon crawl-ish in a certain sense. And there was some social interaction, right? There was some social intrigue, but I think most of that was just because the players themselves were interested in that direction to go in.
And almost every player disagreed with you on that, right? Because we said, yes, we went into those places, but there was a reason for us to go in.
Right.
We came back out. And then we concluded that like the Mad Mage, the one in Waterdeep, right?
Yes.
That's an actual dungeon. It's like 100
It's
levels.
a mega dungeon.
Yeah.
That is a dungeon crawl.
That is a dungeon crawl because you're in this dungeon and you have to get whatever and get back out.
To the bottom.
Yeah.
Right. Correct. So I was corrected. as to what a dungeon crawl was. But I thought it was dungeon crawl-esque. But you're right. You guys had some autonomy as to what you guys wanted to do, where you guys wanted to go, and stuff like that. So, again, you should know your players, but obviously I didn't, even after.
Well, no, that was just
40
a
years.
definition of what you thought a dungeon crawl
Right,
was
right.
versus what other people thought
Right.
it was, right?
Yes. What is that definition of terms?
The terms of service.
Terms of service. So obviously that is something that you as a GM will know what your players like. Like, I kind of know what they like, but I was still like, well, did you guys like that adventure? Because it wasn't my idea, right? The adventure.
Right.
It was something that,
It was a module.
a module, right?
It was an
from the
advent.
starter set.
It wasn't even a module. It's called a.
It's like a mini
campaign,
campaign,
yeah.
right? To get your players from 1st to 5th.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting. I mean, I go, okay, yeah, I thought it was interesting. I thought it was interesting and a good enough module, series of adventures, a mini campaign to run it.
Yeah.
And I thought it was good. And because I had it on Roll20, I was like, oh yeah, it makes it super easy. They give you all the stuff. Okay, so there's other factors involved, and then these are not in no particular order. I'm not putting them like this is second important, most important, fifth most important. These are all just things that
Randomly that came out of your head.
came out of my head, and like I said, in no particular order. So one of the factors, how creative are you, right? And I know every GM is creative, right? They come up with stuff no matter how many modules or how closely they follow the module or adventure, if that's the route they take. And there's some people who are super creative, who are just like, ideas are popping out of their head all the time, and they can come up with they have amazing imaginations, and they can come up with some fantastic and entertaining ideas. There's people like that, and then everybody's on a
scale,
right? And another thing is, like, people who create, you could create everything, or you could read about something and go, and get ideas from that. So would you rather create, or would you rather read about something to spark your imagination or to give you a direction, right? And then, of course, because if you are a GM, depending on your imagination, depending on what you want to do, are you using your players' characters' background stories or ideas that they have in their character or the past of the character that you might want to integrate into the game that you're going to run, right? In a module, that's a little tougher to do, right? In a module, because you kind of shoehorn their backstory into the module sometimes.
Well, you can always change it, though.
That's true. But again, it takes imagination, and sometimes some people have a hard time doing that. Right? I don't know how I am at doing that. Sometimes I think I'm good. Sometimes I don't. So, but there you are.
I've only run a few modules.
Yeah.
And the last one I ran, I didn't like some of it, so I just changed it to what I liked.
Right.
Or it's not like I'm saying it was bad or anything. It was just, I was like, oh, well, I don't like that way. We'll just get rid of that. We'll throw this in. Right?
That's true. I mean, a lot of people do that, right?
Yeah.
I don't like this part. But some people are like, some people might be like,
it's written this way. I have to.
It has. There's a reason why it's written this way, right? Maybe later on. And that's another thing about reading, is that you have to read the whole thing. And usually for me, I got to read it more than once, probably more than twice, to get the full gist and get all the things,
the minutia,
and all the things in working order in my brain. So that's the thing. If you're really creative, I think you might gear yourself toward making your own modules or writing your own adventures.
I would tend to agree, maybe, but then
these are generalizations.
I kind of like modules in a way, just because they give you an idea, and then you can just take what you want from it, and just leave the rest of it.
Right.
Like, I like the idea of them already having NPCs written out, or like their ideas for NPCs, because sometimes that can be a hard thing to come up with for me.
Yes.
Versus other people might, that might be easy.
They totally enjoy that kind of crap.
And if they're already done, then you don't have to worry about it. Or if they tell you in a module, it might be, this is what this encounter. Oh, I really like that encounter, but I don't like this one. That kind of thing, right?
Correct. I mean, NPCs names. or just name and what they're like, and a clue. It could be one sentence. It could be 5 words: smelly, stinky, disheveled. His name is Carl, right? I mean, you're like, okay, wow, I can have something in my
That
head,
helps me.
and I can roll with that,
Yeah.
right? So that's good. Again, like, are you good at reading modules? Because like sometimes, or reading rules, right? It kind of goes hand in hand. Sometimes I could read a module or an adventure. I read a module and I'm like, oh yeah, this is really good. It makes sense to me. And sometimes I read about what I'm like, what the heck is going on?
That could have how it's written. That could have to do with how it's written, also.
Right, and also how good you are at reading, and sometimes
or interpreting what they're saying.
Interpreting what they're writing.
Yeah.
Right, and a lot of people. This is again on a scale. I could read a book and get stuff from it, and then you could read a book and you get not. Of course, we more or less get the same idea from it, but you might get a little bit more details than I would, simply because I think you're a better reader and pay more attention. For example, right? Remember you were talking about Rand. Well, okay, the Wheel of Time, when Rand first has expresses the power, his magical power, kind of is where I think him and Matt are locked away by some dark friend, right? And they're tied up or something, and they're like inside some shack. Right, and then all of a sudden there's a lightning, and the Matt goes, oh, luckily it struck the door, and we can leave, right? Because it blew the door open. And then I put that away, and then literally years later, I'm rereading it, and then you're like, oh, that was the first. I thought, oh, this is where the lightning struck, and they were able to escape. And then you're like, yeah, that's where Rand first had the power or used the power. I'm like, what are you talking about? Well, Rand is the one that made the lightning. We think the lightning came out of the sky. I'm like, OMG, right? I'm like, I couldn't put 2 and 2 together in the guess. So I think that's what I'm talking about. Some people read one way and some people read another. I am not a very good reader. And that's it.
You are a good reader. You just don't always, the little details don't stand out to you as important.
Right. And then when you're reading a module, that's probably an important part of reading a module. Sometimes they themselves, the writer, depend on their skill, right? You depend on the skill of the writer to relay the important information to you. And sometimes they may do things subtly, even though that's probably not a good thing, but you never know. It all depends on the skill of the writer and how good you are at reading and finding like the details that stick out.
The other thing for modules for me, or at written adventures, is that I always feel like sometimes I don't want to feel like I'm railroading my players, right? And they want you to go here to get the information, and then they send you to another place,
right?
And that kind of thing. And of course, when you're writing a adventure, you're going to put that stuff in there, right? Because this is the way that it can happen. And some of them that are really good that I've read will give you options, right? The player could, if the players go this way, they could encounter this, or if this one happens, this could happen. Whereas some of them are like, they go to the end.
They have to go here.
They have to go to the well. They have to go to this farmhouse and different kinds of things like that, right? So that they can get all the clues to put stuff together. Whereas, someone could say, I could take all that and go, okay, they meet a guy on the road and he tells them all of this stuff, right?
Well, I think people who write modules or adventures, they've gotten better at not seeming so railroady, and somebody was talking about how a railroad isn't automatically a bad thing.
No,
right, and especially if the GM is like, okay, this is the adventure I have, you venture away from it, I don't have anything for that.
Right. I haven't taken the time to come up with that.
Right.
6 different scenarios for you.
I don't have, if you guys don't go to this world or this land or this state or get on the plane, I'm going to close my book and say, let's go play a board game or something, because I don't have anything for that. So I think there is that version of railroad that you have to buy into it, right?
Yes.
Like, for example, my Western adventure that I'm writing or wrote, and everybody is part of this small town, and they're to investigate a murder. And if they all agree, well, I don't
like this place.
We don't like this place anyway. We're all going to just move to Albuquerque. Okay. Game over. Right?
Yeah.
if they don't want to do the thing that obviously is what they're supposed to do. Now,
That's what Mike, our friend Mike, he has said that before. He said sometimes you have to take that hook,
right,
because you came to play a game,
right,
and this is the adventure that's being offered to you.
correct. So yeah, so another thing is that sometimes when you're trying to come up with something, it's just really hard, right? It's just I remember, and this was always a pain in the butt. When I was in high school and even in college, I was the teacher, the professor was going, "Okay, I need you to write a paper." I'm like, "Okay, what are the subjects? About history, World War II. What about World War II? Well, whatever you want." Like, no, I need something a little bit more focused than that, and so that used to bug the hell out of me because it's too open, right? I need a little bit of direction. And I go, okay, once they gave me that little bit of direction, because a lot of times I would go to their office and go, what exactly are you looking for? What kind of paper? I mean, World War II or whatever the large span of time they were talking about. He goes, well, something that interests you, so they would help me come up with an idea. But me just coming up with an idea sometimes doesn't work, right? Especially if you I'm pressured to do it. Other times an idea comes to me and I just run with it, right? Like the quinceañera idea. Yeah. I'm like, well, wow, that'd be interesting. But other times you need that inspiration.
You need some kind of an idea.
Yes. And then you can run with that as much as you want or as little as you want.
You need to be sent in a direction, not just World War II, because there's a lot of things you could talk about.
Maybe some things happen in World War II, quite a few. Okay, a lot of people tout that buying a module is time saving. Now, I can sort of agree with that, right? But another thing is you got to read the module. How much time are we saving? And then
depends on.
And then if you don't really understand what's going on in the module, you're like, oh. But I do think you can save time because modules include NPCs, right? Maps. Usually there's maps in the module. Maybe even some art or handouts. And that's all stuff you could do on your own. And in fact, you don't even have to be a great cartographer. You can there's a ton of resources online with this thing called the internet. I don't know if you guys ever heard of it, but it's pretty darn amazing. You can look stuff up and some stuff is free. Sometimes you have to pay for it, but it's there, right? And it will help you facilitate coming up with something that you want to run, instead of buying a module, which I, for all intents and purposes, does save you a bit of time. But at the same time, if you're a slow reader or you're slow to comprehend stuff, that might take a little bit more time than normal. And sometimes when you read a module, as this happens to me too, quite a bit, is when you read something and you're like, okay, you got to remember this part. You got to remember this part.
You should write it down, babe. To remember it.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Make an outline.
Yes. Write it down. And when you're playing the game, you're like, oh, this is an important part of this room or this character. And you're like, I don't remember. I got to look it up. So then you open up your module book or your adventure book, and that might break the flow of the game. And like people go, oh, okay. How well does he know this game? Did he even read the module?
I still remember when, right after the pandemic, when we went to Pacificon and you ran I don't remember what game it was, but part of it had maps and part of it didn't. And the lady actually asked you.
At the end of the game.
Yeah, at the end of the game, she asked you about it. Like, when there was a map, was that
was written?
That was like written in the adventure.
But when there wasn't a map, was that all made up? I go, no.
They just didn't put a
map. They just didn't put a map in the book. And it was funny because like I said, I would never have not made up. I never would have came up with that concept of like, why is there a map sometimes and why isn't there a map sometimes? I'm thinking, that wouldn't have occurred to me. And yet that's what I'm talking about. Everybody thinks differently. Some people are really good at picking up things, and maybe she drew a weird conclusion or
she basically drew the conclusion that when you made the map and it wasn't prepared, that you went off of whatever the module was. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that's what I'm saying. I don't know if I would have come up with that idea. And it's a perfectly valid idea. It makes sense. Right? Sometimes he has a map and he doesn't have a map. I'm like, because they didn't give me a map because it was a module, sort of, right? Well, no, it was a module. And I think, like I said, that there was some things I improvised, right?
Yeah. That wasn't what it was.
But there was nothing that all the encounters were encounters or things that they did. Like I invented the name of the burger place across the street.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, what's the name of the place?" I'm like, "God damn you!" I didn't want to say In-N-Out Burger, so I said Flippin' Burger. And then, so they went in there and they're like, "What do you want on your Flippin' Burger?" And so they thought it was kind of funny. I thought it was kind of funny too, but I didn't do it to be amusing. I couldn't think of anything to say. So I go, "Hey, it's Flippin' Burger."
That always happens whether you have a module or you're making your own adventure. They're always going to ask you the name of the NPC
Yes.
or where you are. And unless you have a list written down to randomly pull from or something, it's going to be someone's going to say Bob because it's an easy name, right? To
That's
remember.
terrible. And it's terrible. It doesn't fit. Sometimes it doesn't fit in the.
It doesn't fit with the other names in the adventure.
Yes.
Or the world.
Yeah, all these people have like arg, they're dogs and Kimtletong, and then you go, "Oh, my name's Bob." Okay, get the hell out of here. Right? But that's what happened. I know for a fact, having a list of names that you could like, oh, this is whatever genre you're in or whatever world you're playing or time period, you have a list of names, and then like next to it, there's some space, and you just write down, "Oh, this is the butler," or "This is the room, what do you call it, the clerk at the hotel." And so just so people will have that idea that there's some consistency in your story when you're like,
Let's see.
Pencil.
I remember one year that you used rugby players' names.
Yes,
From the Six
yes.
Nations.
I did it on purpose.
I know.
Because they wouldn't come up with, they wouldn't know who they were unless
Right.
they were rugby fans. And let me tell you, none of them were rugby fans. So yeah, and I think but it's still attaching a name to, because I was using rugby players, but I didn't have like a list of who they were.
But see, it's always good just to have a list of names,
Yes,
right?
always good.
That you can.
Because
and
people can ask names for people who have.
I learned that from some GM thing that I was watching, and the guys, I always have this list of names, and then when they ask me, I can just pull it up and go, okay, this is the name.
And it looks like what you could forget, right? You
Yeah.
could forget who the paper boy's name
Yeah.
is, but when you look up something, you're like, oh, this guy thought of everything.
Because if you think about it, which NPC the players are going to be interested in isn't necessarily the NPC that you went and took an hour envisioning who they were, and you wrote it all down, and you were expecting them to talk to that person, but they decide to talk to somebody else. And now I would say if that happens to you, just take your NPC, make that person's name and switch it. But some people won't do that, right? They'll go, I spent that time and it's wasted. They want to talk to Bob because I wasn't even expecting them to come up with talking to this person.
Right. Yeah. I mean, sometimes things, the players have some very good ideas. Like I just come up with when you were talking about people they come up with. So let's say players are investigating a scene of a crime, whatever it is, and it's in the morning or whatever. And they're like, well, is there anybody around? I go, no. And then depending on what time period, right? In the early 70s. So they're like, they go, well, is there a paper at the door? And you're like, sure. Okay. What time does the paper get there? 7:00. Well, is it a paper boy or is it delivered by? Yeah, it's a paper boy. Let's go find out with the paper boy. Maybe he saw something.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh God.
I never even thought about it.
Write down and then you don't even write. But it's an interesting thing for the players to do. If they find something interesting, I'm not saying every time, every idea they have is going to be a positive lead to whatever they're doing.
Well, if they came up with finding a paper boy, you should give them some kind of clue for that, or give them information.
Like, oh yeah, I saw some dark-haired dude. Yeah, I thought it was it didn't look like Mr. Johnson, but I thought it might have been his brother or something.
Yeah.
Whatever. But I think those kind of things are really good. So it's always handy to have that list of names.
And sometimes modules will give you ideas for that, right? They'll have NPCs. And you can take that NPC and use it wherever you want.
That's true.
You don't
cut and paste.
You're actually using your fingers to cut him out.
To physically cut it out of your module.
You can copy and paste.
Oh, I forgot about modern times. Another good thing about modules, usually if you're playing, this matters in the more, more crunchy games and games that I say D&D, it has levels and stuff like that, is balance,
Mhm.
right? If they say, or the module says, oh, this is adventures from 3 to 4 adventures from levels 1 through 3. So, okay, you're not going to find a golden dragon in that freaking, that they got to kill to advance to the next level or to get through the module, right?
Yeah, but also you got to take into consideration when you look at that, how many players you have, what level they are,
Correct.
and what their skills are. Because I know the last adventure that I ran, the Christmas one,
Okay.
some of the monsters, I'm using quotes here, some of the encounters that they had were, it said, because the module was for 4 players at 5th level, and I think
Okay.
there were like 5 or 6 of you,
I think
and
there was 6 of us.
I was like, I had this thought, is that going to work? And then I also had the second thought was just add another one
Another bad guy
to balance it,
Yeah.
right? And use the same stats as this one.
Right.
That was my thought, right? Because I've been doing this for a little while, and all these people that I play with have taught me a lot of different things.
Of course.
That was one of them, the balance thing.
So did you have to do that?
No,
No.
because the 4 animated tools were just as difficult for you guys.
Yeah. Well, the thing is also like there might be 6 of us,
Right.
but there's only like 2 people who are actual like combat orientated.
Yeah.
Right. And there's no tank in our group to absorb all the damage. Right. And there's like way too many spellcasters in our group. And I'm like, well, I am more of a thief than a frontline fighter. So I don't think I should jump. And I'm like, well, but the stuff like that happens, right? You're right. It may say 1 through 4, let's say 3 to 4 players who are 5th level. And you're like, oh, they're going to breeze through this.
Right.
But that's normal, like a balanced group party that's going to go against what this module says it is. So I found that to be true too. Also, is that when I was running the last one with the Last Minds of Fandelver, I'm like, holy crap, these guys are tough. I took out 1 or 2 of them because it was a good fight as it was, and sometimes you guys were going down because I don't keep track of your hit points. And so you guys...
Yes, I know. You almost killed me the other night. I was like, luckily, you did kill momentarily the bard. Yeah.
The bard.
But I was like at 12 hit points, and I took like 30 hit points of damage in one shot. And
but it wasn't really because it was a disadvantage, and he shouldn't have gotten a critical hit. Because that's why it did so much damage. My electronic dice, my Roll20 dice,
were on fire. Yeah,
were hot.
But I was like, and I was sitting there going, well, I got all these freaking magic users around me. I'm the tank. And I don't have, I know I have more hit points than most of them, but I took a pretty bad hit.
But your armor class is really low.
My armor class is 13 or 14. Yeah.
That's pretty low.
Yeah.
For a tank.
Well, I'm not really a tank. I'm just a fighter.
I'm just a fighter. So you're right. So balance. I think
that's always a problem, right?
Yes.
Not a problem. It's a thing to work out for the GM. What the party's damage does versus what the monsters, quote unquote, do.
Right.
And I always had that problem with the boys who did like 92 points of damage every time they hit something. I'm like, well, I got to give them monsters that are bigger.
Right. But then there's other players who like don't have that much points, and their armor class isn't that high. So how do you do that? So I think balance, like I said, it's a good guesstimation as to what level this module is good at. Of course, you might have to adjust things or don't adjust them. It's up to you. I think if you think, some people say, well, I don't care about that. They're just, if they die, they die. I'm like, okay. And I totally understand that kind of deal. Or putting a monster that's way outclassed them and they should run away. They should run away, but for stubborn reasons, they don't. I don't usually run games that way. And I don't think it's, the problem is, this is the problem, and I think I've admitted it before. I've trained my players to think that everything is solvable. Well, everything is solvable, but maybe not today. But running away is usually not. Running away is not an option for most. I suggest it every once in a while. Yes, you do, and nobody listens to you. Nobody listens to me. So I was gonna say though, like it depends on the game you're playing too, like what the module is. Right. Like
I remember when we were playing Liminal and we had a werewolf.
Yes.
And werewolves do a lot of damage.
Yes.
But some of the other players don't do a lot of damage. And if you get shot, you're dead. So there's no.
Well, that's just the way that game is, right? There's fantastical creatures, and then there's normal people
Right.
who are trying to
eliminate you.
well, no, there's normal people in the party, and they're vulnerable, right?
Right. It's
And
like when you play Call of Cthulhu.
Yes.
You should always have an extra character around just in case. But
Call of Cthulhu, everybody's vulnerable.
Balance isn't in all games, right?
No.
That's what I meant by it. Because a werewolf can do a lot of damage, but if you're fighting something that puts people to sleep or something like a magical,
or it can't take physical damage,
or you've stepped into a dream and you didn't realize it, right? And you have to figure out how to get out of it. There's not a lot of balance in that.
And and the thing is that the werewolf was good for brutal real world stuff, but how good would it be he'd be in a dream?
Right.
He'd be probably pretty weak.
Yeah.
Because usually it's a balance of either you're really strong physical character and you're weak mentally or spiritually, if you want to say that word. So I think balance is a good what they say on the module, but it's not foolproof, right?
Right.
And it all depends on the makeup of your party and how they like to play.
And you should adjust it. But as the GM, you can look at that and take it into consideration, right? And also on that point, when the modules have the encounters with the different kinds of monsters or creatures or people that you're going to encounter, it does kind of help you to see that balance. Like, I know that my party could do this, but if I'm just picking out a monster from the monster manual, I don't know what a mind flayer can do.
Right. Like my Banshee.
Yeah.
Really a few times already. They were, I forget what level they were, and I put a Banshee in, and I didn't realize that her scream did
like 64 points of damage.
Which was double the number of hit points anybody had. And I'm like, oops. She was on a
bridge.
A bridge that they had to cross, or they could have swam, but like, why swim? There's a bridge. And yes. So that was my fault. I just overlooked that part of the stat block. I had the stat block and stuff because I had prepared it the day before. We were playing online.
No, that was with the kids. We were playing at Mel's store.
Oh, was that Mel's store?
Yeah.
Wow, that was a while ago.
Yeah.
I thought it was here at our house. Okay. So yeah, because they were young.
Yeah.
I mean, they were low level. And then there's cost, right? I will relate the story that this was a big deal when I was younger, right? I had no job. Parents didn't give me allowance or anything like that.
You were like 11.
Yes.
Okay.
And so we're able to, collect our nickels and dimes from whatever. And me and my friends and Felipe, maybe Felipe just didn't want to buy stuff for us, but we bought 2 modules. One was Felipe, totally Felipe's. He somehow, he had a job, right? So he got the Village of Hamlet, which is a terrible module actually, because there's no adventure. It's just like a setting. And there's bad guys in it, but it doesn't tell you what to do or what they're doing or what you're supposed to do. But anyway, there it is. This is an old TSR module, right? The old ones where they're stapled together. They have a little bit of a cardboard backing pictures, and all of them were like that, right? And then we bought the Steading of the Hill Giant. Somebody bought it. I think it was Sip or Esteban. And then we like, oh, this is a really good module. It was pretty cool. And then Against the Giants came out because that was an older module. And then what they did is they got all 3 modules and they put them together and they call it Against the Giants. So you're supposed to go against the Hill Giants, then the Fire Giant, the Frost Giants, then the Fire Giants.
That sounds like a campaign that we played in.
Well, there was one where you guys did go against Frost Giants, and then I don't think you guys went against Field Giants. But then remember the Storm King's Thunder? There was Hill Giants involved and other kinds of giants involved.
That's the one I was talking about.
So it's kind of a retelling of that story, part of it anyway. Anyway, so they came out with Against the Giants where they put all those modules together and sold it for a reduced price, or that's what we bought. And so we all ran a different part of that module. You're going to run the Hills Giant, you're going to run the Fire Giant, and I'm going to run the Frost Giant. So that was pretty cool. But they put out a ton of modules, and if you look into the TSR story, they were putting out so many modules that they were putting out more modules than people were buying. And so supposedly toward the end of the company, they had warehouses full of modules that were unsold, of stuff that was unsold. Anyway, there's a thing about cost, right? Do you really want to spend? And now modules are pretty pricey, right? They're usually not just some pamphlet folded a folder that costs $9 or something.
But also, you can get a PDF of it.
PDFs, yes, you're right.
So I mean,
the cost has gone down.
Yeah.
But physical. Some people like dead tree versions. Like they like to feel to read the paper. Paper, Gandalf. I want to feel the paper. Anyway, so you're right. The cost of actually going out and getting a PDF or a module is substantially less. And now, if you want, on DriveThruRPG, you can buy every single module that TSR ever made.
And if your husband has a DriveThruRPG, you can just go onto his library and search for stuff that you might want to run. There's like 2,000 things there. So
that's only stuff that I bought. There's more than that at DriveThruRPG.
That's what I'm saying.
Again,
it may be free to you because somebody else already bought it.
You could ask somebody, "Oh, do you have it?" And they're like, "Oh, yeah." I would just say that a lot of those were charity bundles. So I'm very charitable. Thank you very little. And there's other things that you can do when you now, because the internet there's all kinds of stuff. There's like, what didn't you use for one of the dungeons? You used some website.
It was Don
John's.
I don't know. It was some.
And it just makes the dungeon for you, right?
Yeah, I don't know if it's still there. That was a few years ago. Yeah, it was really cool. You put in how many players you had, what level they were, and what you wanted, and then it would spit it out for you. And you could also get monsters in there. It was very cool.
Very cool.
I think it was called Don John's
Dungeon Creator or something.
Yeah, it was something like that.
Very cool. Me, I was pretty cheap. I mean, I didn't have a job. Obviously, I was 11 or 12. I didn't get a summer job till I was like 14. So there you go. And I was pretty stingy. I didn't want to spend my money. And if I wanted to spend my money, I spend it on, I have no idea what I spent my money on. Clothes. Because my dad said, I'm not buying you any more clothes. I'm like, oh. And I'm not going to take you to get a haircut. Which, if you saw me in any picture in my youth and in my adulthood, I have never gotten a haircut. Luckily for my dad, now, if he was ever to see me, he passed away 4 years ago, he would notice that I have a lot less hair than I did when I was younger. So he's punishing me from the great beyond or not getting haircuts. But what I did have as a child was time. And because I wasn't a great student, I was a mediocre student, I wasn't always studying, I had more time. So I had a pencil and a paper and lined paper, and that was pretty cheap even back in the 80s. And I just made all kinds of adventures and dungeons and even maps. I remember I told you the story about where I got this graph paper, and I would I put a mountain here, a little valley of hills, and just made maps of crazy of islands and lands and stuff like that. And I run across those every once in a while. There's a folder. I have folders all over the place, and I stuffed them with my old papers in it. And every once in a while I run across, I go, holy crap. I was kind of creative for a little guy. Imagine that. Buying a module or making one yourself is totally up to you as an individual, as a GM. And I think most people will say, probably make your own because it's really personalized and you can really do your own thing and you can stretch your imagination.
I'm going to disagree with you on that one. The most people part.
Really?
Especially like a lot of new people, a lot of new dungeon masters or game masters that have come to D&D and are young.
Oh yeah, they have low attention spans.
No, that is not what I was.
I think that's what you're saying.
That is totally not what I was going to say.
Okay,
they don't have the same experience as a guy who's been running games for 35 to 40 years.
Yeah, I agree.
So they might need some ideas and the way that the internet works today, they can find a lot of different ideas and they could watch actual plays to get ideas. They could go online and talk to AI to get ideas. And there's all kinds of different things that you can do to get ideas to make your own. But there's also, when you go looking for that stuff, they might discover DriveThruRPG and go, oh, somebody already did all this for me. I could get it for $5 and try to run it.
You can even get free stuff. I know there's e-zines back in the...
Oh, yeah.
They don't make them so much anymore. But you can find e-zines that had modules written in them, and of anything. I mean, just look it up, and they're free.
Yeah.
Because they're just a PDF on the internet. And even if you don't use that module to the T, they're great places. They're to
get
mine
ideas,
stuff.
to get ideas, and different things that you could use.
And I'm not saying I don't buy modules, right? I bought The Darkening of the Mirkwood for the One Ring, and it is a fantastic series of adventures.
And I'm not going to say you don't buy modules because you have like 2,000 PDFs on Drive Through RPG.
Well, I'm talking about physical ones.
I'm just telling you that obviously you buy modules.
I buy
and
modules.
I'm looking around my house going, yeah, I think you do.
Oh yeah. There's some genres and things that I find hard
to pass up.
No. There's that too, especially if it's at a flea market and discounted. I think there's some games or genres that I have a hard time coming up with what I think is a
good idea for your players
for adventure.
Yeah,
and one of them is Shadowrun, because I'm just like, man, what can they do? What do they want to do?
And when you do play Shadowrun, they'll do whatever you want. I mean, they'll go with whatever you give them.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like, for me, like D&D, I can come up with crap all day, every day. But for Shadowrun, it's like, you want that intricacy, you want that idea of a heist involved, you want somebody
being kidnapped,
and why are they kidnapped, and what's the double cross here?
Yeah.
What can go wrong? And
is that person a dragon? That kind of thing.
Yeah. And so is he really a bad guy, or is he really a good guy? We don't know. And I think that's the tough part for me in that game.
Well, and there's books written. There's Shadowrun books.
And novels. You mean
novels, and then there's tons of modules.
Yes, that's what I said, and I have quite a few.
And in fact, our son just borrowed some too, so he can run a game, which is amazing. Right. But I think that's pretty. I mean, that's one of the things. Shadowrun is one of the things that I love reading the adventures and stuff, especially. Because it's kind of cool.
Because I ran a Mercurial, which is an old adventure, I think from 3rd edition. Might have been even earlier, but I ran it for 5th edition for you guys.
Yeah.
And then Augustine, he goes, I'm gonna run a Shadowrun game for my friends. I go, okay, the next weekend. And he goes, he knows what the books are, and he goes, is there any modules? And I go, I picked out the Mercurial because he had played in it, and then he was reading through it. He goes, oh, look at this. And then some stuff I ignored, right? Because you guys didn't encounter it, or I didn't want to deal with it. And he goes, and he starts laughing at some of the jokes that were inside the module.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's stuff that I had completely forgotten.
Well, you can think about that for anything, right? Like a cyberpunk game.
Yes.
You might want to get a module to just have an idea of what the world is like, or but then there's like different genres, like Star Trek. You could, if you have watched Star Trek, you could come up with.
Oh my God, yes! You can't stop thinking about adventures for Star Trek. But let's say a Blade Runner.
Blade Runner, you definitely want a module.
You don't even like the movie, so that's not fair.
The game is okay. It's a very.
It was the first time I ran it. Okay, so everybody loved it afterwards.
No, I'm not talking. I'm saying the genre is because you're literally a cop, right?
Yeah.
And you're detecting, trying to be a detective. So a module is very helpful.
Right.
But even then, it's a hard one to. There's always going to be moral questions and what you should do.
Well, I ran it out over Roll20 for you guys, and it was the first time I ran it, and I had some difficulty running that game. But when I ran it again at the convention, it was heralded as one of the best games I've ever played in.
That is why you run, what do they call them?
A play test.
A play test. Yes. And you run it with people that are going to tell you, I didn't understand why we had to do that.
Oh, that's really sucked, dude.
Or I didn't get that part. And then you know when you go to play it.
Yes. I didn't used to play test anything. I just came up with an idea, ran it. And if it was fun at the convention, heck, let's do it. And I would never run the same adventure more than once.
Right.
The only reason I started doing that was because I noticed other GMs doing it, and then 2, people try to get in my game and they're like, "Oh, it's full." I go, "Yeah, you know what? I'll run it again at Dungeon Crawl. Or run it again at KubaCon, and so people would look forward to it. So I'm like, oh, I'm gonna run it again. And on top of that, I thought it was like different. It was so different that I really enjoyed myself.
Because you were running the same thing and your players were doing totally different things in each game.
Right. So I'm sure you get that same thing from modules, right? Like, what's his name runs almost exclusively modules? Morgan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Morgan gets different outcomes in each time that he goes. Because he'll say, well, this group did this and this other group did something totally different.
Yeah. Most people think that once you run a module, well, you toss it. Unless you're playing with the same group.
Yeah, you can't run the same module for the same people.
Yeah, but you can run it for different groups. And that is entertaining and that's rewarding as a GM for me.
Well, you run even the game you came up with, or the adventure that you came up with, you've run it for.
But I run it 4 times.
Yeah, and so you can reuse them, just not with the same people.
Correct.
So there you go. Hopefully this gives you an idea of...
To buy modules or to make up your own.
This is Gaming Perspectives with
Saul
and Jolene.
You have a good day.